Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the September 16th, 2020 virtual meeting of the Board of Selectmen. I will start by reading our preamble. Good evening. As Chairman of the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen, I am declaring that an emergency exists and I am invoking the provisions of RSA 91-A:2-3B. Federal, state, local officials have determined the gatherings of 10 or more people pose a substantial risk to our community in its continuing efforts to combat the spread of COVID-19. In concurring with their determination, I also find that this meeting is imperative to the continued operation of town government and services, which are vital to public safety and confidence during this emergency. As such, this meeting will be conducted without a quorum of this body physically present in the same location. At this time, I also welcome members of the public accessing this meeting remotely. Even though this meeting is being conducted in a unique manner under unusual circumstances, the usual rules of conduct and decorum apply. Any person found to be disrupting this meeting will be asked to cease the disruption. Should the disruptive behavior continue thereafter, that person will be removed from this meeting. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. So I'll start the meeting by taking roll call of attendance. When each member states their name, please state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Start off with Linda.
Yes, I'm here by myself in a room. Only animal is here is my cat, who may show up from time to time.
Okay. Dave Bowers.
I'm here. My cat is not here, but might arrive. My wife is not here.
Thank you, Dave. Paul O'Brien.
I'm here. I don't have a cat. I just have a bowl of yogurt that I'm eating.
Try the SPCA.
By myself.
And Dave Senecal.
Yeah, I'm here by myself, but you might hear Abby run through once in a while. That's my dog.
And I'm Brad Harriman. I'm also here in a room by myself tonight. First thing on our agenda is Mr. Pino, do we have a need for a non-public session this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have one item under RSA 91A:3, Roman numeral 2, letter D, under lease agreement.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is going to be consideration of the minutes of September 2nd. Anybody have any corrections or comments on these? Linda?
On page 10, the first paragraph, the second line, last word should be followed, not allowed. And then on page 11, last paragraph, third line from the bottom, it says changes but we made should be there instead of may.
Okay. Anybody else have anything?
The only other thing is we probably should have the protocols that we approved for Pop Whale and attached to the minutes. They were not there.
Good point. Yes.
Not a bad idea.
Okay, so we'll count that as a correction too in the
Well,
minutes.
Or maybe in addition to attaching the minutes, we should just, if we haven't already done it, maybe Amy's done this. We just got to pop them out on the website so that people can see them.
But if somebody in the future went back to look, a couple years
No, I
from
agree.
now, it would be attached to the minutes, and that's what we've been doing.
No, I agree.
No, I agree.
I just think in addition, I said in addition, that would be good. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the acceptance of the minutes then, as amended.
Move to approve. Yeah, move as amended.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as amended. To do a roll, any other discussion? A roll call vote. Linda?
Yes?
Dave Bowers?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
And Dave Senecal?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is public hearing. First one, actually the only one we have is the Wolfeboro Garden Club to host a Christmas wreath sales at an annual fundraiser for the club from November 18th to the 22nd of 2020 at the railroad station from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. as a drive-up service due to COVID-19. Do we have somebody here that's going to speak to us about this evening?
Yes, I would like to speak. My name is Terry White.
Okay.
We've been doing the wreath project for the town of Wolfeboro and surrounding towns for over 10 years. And what we normally do is when we have all the wreaths arrive to DeWilder's Farm the past couple years, we prepare all the wreaths and we deliver them to each either office or family, or there are a couple pickups. Last year we sold almost 672 wreaths. This year, because of COVID, we're trying to keep all of our members safe. A lot of us, most of us, are over 65. And in order to keep them safe, we have attempted to change the procedure where we will have the wreaths delivered to DeWilder's Farm, put on the hangers, and then hopefully find a storage place where we can store them, add the bows, and have people just drive up and pick up a wreath. This will prevent all of our workers from having to work together to put the exact bow on in the exact position and deliver each and every wreath. We will still be delivering wreaths for establishments that order, some establishments order 15, 20 wreaths at a time, 10 wreaths. So any establishment that is getting a lot of wreaths, a large number, we will distribute. But then we would like this year to be able to use the railroad station office building there to store the wreaths, put bows on them, and hang them around the fence there where the playground used to be, have people drive up, hand us a check or cash, and drive away. And we feel that we would need maybe 100 less volunteers. We would not be exposing people in the inside and in people's homes. And it would be just safer for everyone and easier for everyone if we could give the wreaths in this manner this year. We do give 20 wreaths to the town buildings as part of our charity. And then the money that we make what we use it for is all those beautiful flowers all over town and all the window boxes and all the gardens. And we use it for scholarships. And so this is what we're proposing this year.
All right, thank you. It sounds like you really put a lot of thought into this new procedure for this year that we're all dealing with. And what I'll do is I'll open up the public hearing to anybody out in the public that would like to speak or make comments about this. Do we have anybody online with us this evening about it? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Board members, do we have any questions or comments for Terry here? Linda?
I just have one comment is that they are going to use the railroad station room, and I'm not sure that we aren't talking about somebody else using that space. So that's my concern.
Yeah, that was a question I kind of thought of too. Mr. Pinio, do you have a
Yeah, Mr.
comment?
Chairman, we discussed this a little bit today, and we may actually have another location for that other entity to be able to reside in the interim and potentially permanently. So we are of the belief at this point that that entity will not be using that particular location, and this all really unfolded today, so it should not be a problem for the garden club to be able to use it. I guess my only question would be, 650 wreaths in that location, is that going to be?
We're not going to have that many, and we
Okay.
do a bunch of people. The most that we would have probably left would be 300. Maybe we're not going to get as many, first of all, because it's a trial. And second of all, we are delivering the large amounts to the companies that get large amounts so that they don't have to stop.
Linda?
Yeah, I guess my other concern would be here, they're really wanting to use our space, more of our facility than an outdoor event. This is the first time I realized they were gonna have them on the fence. But usually when you have somebody use a facility, we have some rules that we expect to happen, where to pick up the key, where the thermostat needs to be, etc. And I think that we should get that kind of information to Terry so she knows exactly what we're expecting. I just realized she was giving them to the town. So usually when we rent a space, we usually give a space like that. We ask for rent, but I think we're getting paid back in Reese, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
We don't need any, excuse me, we don't need any heat because the Reese do better when there's no heat. So we don't need any heat.
But we have to keep the building somewhat heated. We can't let the
Right.
pipes freeze if it gets down there. So that's what I mean about heat,
Okay.
light, where they get turned off, how they get turned off, and make sure that's all done. And I think, Jim, you can put something together for that.
Yeah, I can work with staff to get a set of rules of engagements to share with this club. Shouldn't be a problem.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And
Any other questions? Paul? Yes, Paul?
you do know that there are children playing in that playground, so you may have one or two want to take a wreath home. So just be aware that there's kids in the playground.
Okay, thank you.
All righty, thank you.
All right, board members, what's our wish here?
Would you like a motion?
I would love a motion.
I move that we grant a special temporary event permit to the Wolfeboro Garden Club from November 18th through November 22nd to sell wreaths from the railroad station room.
9 to 5, is that right?
9 to 5, yes.
9 to 5.
Motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll have a roll call vote. Linda?
Yes?
Dave Bowers?
Yes.
Dave Senical?
Yes,
And Paul O'Brien?
Yes,
Okay. And Brad Hammer votes yes also. Almost forgot. Good luck with that. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
thanks, Terry.
Yep.
Enjoy your wreath.
We
Yeah.
love, we love the flowers. We love the flowers all year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll leave now.
Thanks. Yeah, next on our agenda is public input. Do we have anybody out there that would like to speak to us this evening? Limited to 3 minutes per person, not to exceed 15 minutes. Seeing none, we'll move on to our bulk vote. We have a couple of manifests in here, an intent to cut wood, and a 1, 2, 3 tax credit exemptions to approve this evening. Would you like to make a motion on the bulk vote?
I'll move to approve the bulk vote items A through C.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the bulk vote items A through C. Any other discussion? Seeing none, have a roll call vote. Linda?
Yes?
Dave Bowers?
Yes.
Dave Senical?
Yes,
Paul O'Brien?
Yes.
And Brad Harron votes yes also. Thank you. Next on our agenda is under new business, approval of the Whiteface Conservation Easement.
Woo.
We have
Mr.
somebody going to
Chairman.
present that? Yes. Yes.
As you may recall, this was on the 2020 warrant. It was approved by the voters. This has been reviewed by Attorney Puffer. So he's detected no issues at this point, so we should be all set to go. And I believe Ms. Clark from the Conservation Commission is here to speak on its behalf.
Hi,
Okay.
yes, thank you, Town Manager. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I also have here with me Dan Coons, who is my Vice Chair, and Leanne Hendrickson, who is my Secretary. And just a very quick refresher, although you might all be sick to death of hearing about this one at this point in time, because it has been going on since, I checked back my notes, since about 2013 is when this project was first brought to us. This is a project to conserve, in summation, about 127 acres of land up in North Wolfeboro off of Browns Ridge Road. It involves 3 different parcels, one of which was donated to the town in 2012 by Richard Morse. And then 2 parcels were purchased from David Overall by the Land Bank and the town of using in part town of Wolfeboro funds from our land fund. And we would like to put all 3 acres into conservation easement. And then immediately upon that action taking place, pending your approval, we would like to accept the transfer of land of the other 2 parcels that are currently under the ownership of the land bank, transfer that to the town. And there is one more document that requires your approval. The Lakes Region Conservation Trust is going to be holding the easement, and they would like you to sign a baseline document report, which essentially states what there is on the ground, what they saw, what the conditions are currently on the ground. And Dan Coons went out and walked the boundaries with the Lakes Region Conservation Trust just a couple of weeks ago. And he and I both looked over the document to verify everything, and we are formally requesting Board of Selectmen approval for such.
All right, thank you. Board members, do we have any questions or comments?
My comment would be,
See.
thanks for doing this.
Yeah, I've been at quite a few of their meetings as well, and it's taken quite a while, but I think it's done at this point.
Right, at this
Sounds
point,
good.
yeah, just looking for the signatures, and then the closing is slated to be held at the town hall on September 25th, Friday at 10 a.m. We've already contacted the Granite State News to come for a photo op if anyone would like to come join us.
Okay.
If the Granite
Would
State
somebody like
News
to make
doesn't send anybody, just take an iPhone picture and send it to them and they'll print it.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Dave.
Or send it to me and I'll send it to them.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody like to make a motion on this?
I will if I get clarity. Do you need the motion for the conservation easement deed and the baseline document? The 2 need to be signed tonight, Lenora?
Yes, correct. That is correct. That is
Okay.
correct.
I'll make a motion to authorize Brad Harriman to sign the conservation easement document and baseline document presented tonight at this meeting.
I'll second that.
A motion is second. Now, for discussion, I do have one question here. The baseline document signature page has Dave Senecal's name on there as being chairman as of March, whatever the town meeting date was. So do we want to make a different motion to that or have that signature page changed to my name on it?
I think we have a new one at the office.
The signature
Okay.
page has been updated, and I will get that to Amy.
Okay.
Okay,
Good.
thank you. Okay, so a motion is second to authorize me to sign the conservation easement deed and the baseline documentation report. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Linda,
Yes?
Dave Bowers,
Yeah.
Dave Senecal,
Yes,
Paul O'Brien,
Yes,
and Brad Herron votes yes also. I thank you, Lenore, and thank you, Dan, and Leanne for the work you guys do on all this. So,
Excuse me, Brad.
Yes,
So you voted on the baseline documentation report and the conservation easement deed, even though the conveyance of the land doesn't have to be signed tonight. I would think that the Conservation Commission would appreciate a vote that you approve the conveyance of the two properties.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank
a
you.
motion and a second to approve the conveyance of the properties. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Linda,
Yes.
Dave Bowers,
Yes.
Dave Senical,
Yes.
and Paul O'Brien,
Yes,
and Brad Herman votes yes also.
thanks, Leland.
Thank you.
Okay,
you all.
thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Next on our agenda is a discussion of the board regarding the Libby Museum trustees meeting follow-up here this evening.
What happened to trick or treat? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong part.
You're on.
You
Paul.
have an,
Man,
You
I
have
was
an
looking at
agenda?
Cindy. I'm
Oh,
sorry,
look at
guys.
that yogurt.
Give me a break, will you? Just give me a break.
you have an agenda?
Have an agenda. I just wasn't reading it properly, Dave. Get up.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
We'll
Oh,
get
yo-
to it, we'll get to it.
Thank you,
So,
Mr. Chairman.
we have
You
a,
won't get candy.
PowerPoint presentation here that I assume is what's gonna go to the, is it the CIP tomorrow? We have a meeting?
Why don't we do this? Jim is going to show a first couple of slides. And then proposing is a discussion for us concerning the direction we want to take. So, oh, look at this. Look at this. So the first slide is, Libby going forward, what do we, the real question is, what do we want to do? Background for those people who are watching. We've been at this now for a few months. We have settled, or we asked for 2 proposals from Alba Architects, which I'll show you here in brief form in a second. We had a meeting with the Libby trustees, of which we are all Libby trustees, last week. Tomorrow is the Capital Improvements Committee meeting. The CIP, as we fondly call it, is the place where town capital budgets get reviewed and get, I hate the word, but it probably works, it makes sense, where they get slotted, where things get kind of sequenced into what we need to do. The ambition of the CIP is to vet projects and to make sure that we don't throw a lot of money into any one given year and create a blood sugar spike on the tax rate. So with that, Jim, if you wouldn't mind, second chart, please. There you go. Go on, Jim.
Little plot.
There we go. So the Libby trustees and the Board of Selectmen have 2 versions of the Libby project from Alba Architects. For the shorthand for this meeting, we have version 1, which we have all identified as what we call the expanded Libby. And version 2 is what we call the rehabilitated Libby. If anybody out there in the public wants to take a look at those plans, they are available at the town hall. And Amy has been kind enough to be the point of contact. Those plans are what you would call architectural rough orders of magnitude. They're not down to the bill of materials as to how many studs we would buy, but they give a side-by-side comparison of what is possible. Okay, chart number 3, Jim. Thank you. A member of the capital improvements team has gone back to 1956 and has pulled every town report from 1956 till present to try to document the investments and the activities that have been made to the Libby Museum. And the reason this person did this, and I'm not here to do anything other than explain, is there has been a narrative that there hasn't been a lot of investment. And I think that that's possibly not as accurate as some people would want it to be. Here's what I did, and this is just from our town annual report, so I have to assume those things are accurate. For the past 5 years, the Libby has had about 2,750 people per year go through the doors, probably more if you count children and free programs and things of that nature. So, there's probably, more to that number, but 2,750 is what's been reported to the town. Every year for the past 5 years, on average, revenues coming into the Libby have been about 38, 33 a year. That's just right off the town annual report. I looked at the 2019 budget, and unless I misunderstand, that number is $44,000 a year is what's been appropriated to the Libby to operate the Libby Museum. And then what I did, rather than go back to 1956, which frankly I didn't want to go that far back, I just basically looked for the past handful of years, and what I was able to determine, including the $300,000 we put in last year, that we have pointed about $615,000 against the Libby. That's just right from the town's annual report. So there's a nice little email from that person on the planning board. And again, if anybody wants a copy of that, just reach out to Amy and we'll gladly get you a copy of it. It is what it is. So next chart, Jim. I've said this before, and I think it's only fair that I repeat it, because I think clarity is important here. And I'm going to read this. I normally don't like reading charts, but I'm going to read this one. On its face, the financials of the Libby and the proposed rehabilitation or expansion do not compete well against other projects such as our highway programs, public safety building, fire apparatus, town docks, Cary Beach, water, quality programs, Pop Whalen. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm speaking for the selectmen, but I've sat on the budget committee in various and sundry forms. We get together each year and we have to figure out how to balance things around the town. I'm going to give you some hydraulics here to think about. Each year, our highway department asks for about $850,000 to $900,000 in highway funds on the capital side. The appropriation for the Libby would probably be about 2.5 times that highway budget. Each year, we have a police department to fund, and that's the operating side of the police department. The appropriation for this Libby would be equivalent to the entire police department's annual budget. And then some. We have a Pop Whalen hockey facility that has, and I don't know what the right number is, Linda probably knows. I think I've heard the number 65,000 people in some way, shape, or form use it. That may be wrong, may be right. And that number, and Pop Whalen needs $850,000 to fix that place up. This would be 3 times the size of the Pop Whalen budget. When I look at those kinds of things, I try to figure out from a priority point of view, where does the money most appropriately get spent? My colleague, Linda Murray, last week used a term that I thought was exactly the right way to go about this. On its face, the financials probably wouldn't stand up really well against somebody saying, hey, listen, we need sidewalks on North Main Street. Or somebody saying, we're going to fix Pop Whalen. Or somebody saying the lights are falling down in Bridge Falls Path. But what Linda pointed out, and I think it's exactly right, is we need to now turn this project out to the community and ask the community, what is the value to you to have a Libby? The Libby Museum, as a building project, or is it a museum? And so I think that's a genuine question. What is the value to the community of the Libby? And the question then is, well, how can we test that value? And I think the way and I haven't been on the Board of Selectmen long enough to remember this, but I think the way you folks tested value like that with a library project, with a town hall project, is you went out and you raised money. That's how they did it. It seems to me there's some things that we have settled on that are already givens. We do not feel, unless you, my colleagues, tell me I'm wrong, we do not feel that the Libby should be closed. We do feel that the Libby should continue as a seasonal facility. And we do feel that those artifacts, those exhibits, those precious things that we've been told are in disrepair because of environmental issues need to be taken out of there at the end of each season. We voted on that. That's done. Tomorrow, the capital improvement team is getting a piece of paper from Jim and from Matt, and Katrina's going to be there. And it's either going to be $100,000 to put in the capital reserve or something else. And they will vote on that tomorrow. The question I think is in front of us right now as members of the Board of Selectmen is, do we set a direction for the Friends of Libby to go fundraise? And that direction could be one of three possible directions: the 2.9 number, the 2.3 number, or no direction at all. Those are the three options I think we have right now. If I missed it, then you could come up with a fourth one. I personally think we should be giving our friends at the Libby, of the Libby, an opportunity to go out and raise money. I think we should give them whatever time they want, a year, 2 years, pick a number. I personally am not in the business of telling them how much time they need. But I think we need to give them a direction. I think we need to let them go out and try to raise money. But I think they need to raise money consistent with the direction given. We all know that by the time this thing comes to the voter, it's going to probably be a bonded project. We all know that a bonded project requires 3/5 majority of the voters. That's a big lift. That's a big lift. And so the value to the community is going to have to get quantified in a very substantial way. What I think we should also do, so that we don't get all out of sync with each other, is we should ask the Friends of the Libby to give us a sense of whether we should get together every 90 days, 4 months, every 6 months, to kind of sit down and review how we're doing on the fundraising. I further believe that what we, the Board of Selectmen, should do to support this fundraising activity is for us to get out there and hold public input sessions. Put this to the public, have them come up to town hall. I think Dave Ford does a super job with these context sensitive solutions. Put that out in front of the voters and say, here's the option we've selected. There's the Friends of the Libby. And here's how, we think you should be thinking about this facility. I think we owe that to the people of the Libby. Once we're done with all of those things, if it takes a year, by the end of next year, we all sit down and we all decide, what are we taking to the voter? It could be wherever we're going to take to the voter, we decide at that point to do it. So I think we're pretty settled on, we don't need to vote on a capital reserve account. We don't need to decide whether we need to protect the artifacts. We don't need to determine whether this ought to be a closed facility until we do anything. I think the only thing we need to really have a discussion on is 2.3, 2.9, or do nothing. And I think personally, a do nothing option doesn't give clarity to the Friends, and frankly, doesn't give clarity to anybody who's going to write a check. So that's kind of where I am. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have a conversation with our colleagues and see if we can get some clarity.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Let's see. Jim, you're going to be able to remove that from the screen there?
Take it down.
So I can see everybody again?
Bingo.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah, I'll start a little bit here. Paul and I spoke earlier about this, and I kind of view as a, I don't know if you want to call it a fourth option, but my feeling is that I don't think we need to tell the Friends right now, do you need to go out and raise money for the 2.3 or the 2.9? My approach on this is to, I think they obviously know that we want to do a renovation. We want to do something with the Libby there. We're not sure just which way we want to go yet. I would like to put this out to the Friends to get behind the fundraising and have them come back to us, say, we would like to go with option A or B, whichever, the 2.3 or the 2.9, and this is what we want to raise and appropriate toward this project here, and to see if we feel as though that would be enough to make this sellable to the town at a future town meeting. My gut feeling tells me that they would choose the larger one, which would, in my estimation, would have them go out and raise, work harder to raise the money and actually put a higher amount that they would bring back to the town as their match for the project here. So that's kind of my feeling on it, is that we shouldn't tell them it's either going to be the 2.3 or the 2.9 and that's it. I think they should kind of come back to us saying, we'd like to go for this option, and we want to try and raise whatever the amount is towards it and go from there. So anybody, obviously turn over to anybody else has input, comments here. And Linda.
Yeah, I guess I'm heading in a different direction than you are, Brad. The 2.9, and they had 600,000 plus, I think, 91,000 of their own, almost 700,000. And when we kind of talked about that last year, it did not get the majority of the Board of Selectmen, and the Budget Committee was not in support of that at all. And I hate to send them out to fundraise a project that I don't think they have the support of the Budget Committee, and at that point didn't have the support of the Board of Selectmen. And we looked for a smaller, less expensive solution in order to bring the price tag down so they could raise money for that project and therefore have a less of an impact on the Board of Selectmen. And I think we made a real commitment as a board by asking for 300,000 in the capital reserve account, that if we didn't need to use it for repairs, was there for either an expansion or a renovation. So and I said that at the Libby Museum meeting, that's the direction I am. If they go out and raise money for the 2.9 and we end up at the same place we were last year, we've gotten nowhere. So I think we have a smaller number. We try to go out and have them raise for that, see what they can come up with, and see if that's sellable. In the meantime, I'm with Paul. I think he did a wonderful job in the presentation. We need to find that value. We need to put that public information gathering out there. I think it was very successful for the library. The library started at 8 million. They had 3 conceptual designs. They went out, met with the public, and they said, too expensive. They went back to the drawing board and came back with one at 5 million that was accepted by the board. So that's the direction I'm in. I would like to see us put $100,000 in a capital reserve account as a warrant article this year and put it on the CIP. And then take a look at exactly what Paul was saying. When we look at all those cash requests, for 2021, then we can sort whether we want to, at this time, do 100,000 for the Libby. So that's where I am.
Dave Senical?
Yeah. When I see this version 1 and version 2, there isn't much difference between the two. I mean, $300,000, we already have that in the difference. I expected to see a number closer to like 1.3, 1.4, somewhere in that area for renovations, like the foundation, insulation, some of the other things. I did not expect a number this high. So I think that we need to, I'll agree with Linda, I'll support $100,000 or warrant article to put it in with the other monies we have and take it to next year. And maybe in the meantime, they can get support through some of their own meetings or whatever to help that. That's where I'm at.
I think we all agree. I mean, I agree too. I think I want to see, I support the 100,000 going into the capital reserve this year. I think the main difference of opinion I'm having with Paul and Linda is that we're telling them right up front that we're only going to look at the 2.3 million project and not even consider the other one at this point. Whereas I think we should make that decision down the road a little bit later on when they get their feet under them and can determine what amount they would like to participate in toward the project. So that's kind of my difference here. Paul?
Yeah, I think Linda made a good point, and I'll try to replay it a little bit. Because we deal with inside the sausage making machine of budgeting, and I worry that setting a course for going out and trying to do a fundraising activity on a $2.9 million project is going to not only meet with some budget committee and other pressures, it's going to just raise a whole bunch of questions about what are we doing, why do we need it. I just think it's a buzzsaw. I think the rehabilitating the Libby and showing good faith of how we're trying to do that, I think makes at least me personally, I think it makes a heck of a lot more sense to what we're trying to do as a town. And I think it would be an easier, I hate to use the word sell, but Linda used it. It'd be an easier sell if we closed the gap to that 2.3. And just a comment to Mr. Senical, I think you're right. I think we were all expecting a substantially different, a bigger distance between 2.3 and 2.9. But at the end of the day, there's taxpayer money that hasn't been spent yet. It's either 2.9 million or it's 2.3 million that we're going to be spending, and we'll take that money and that's in the cash reserve and either appropriate it against that or not. So I'm kind of leaning towards giving them the direction, as Brad, you and I part company on this. I'm okay with that. I'm kind of leaning towards, here's the direction, 2.3. Please come back and tell us how long you need to do it. Let's sit down every 90 days and see your progress. Let's go out and talk to the public about the 2.3 and see if we can help sort this thing out. That's kind of where I come back to.
Any other comments?
Let me just check with Paul a second. Are you into 100,000 for capital reserve?
I'd prefer to let the CIP team weigh in on that first. I don't think we need to weigh in on that right now.
Except we don't have, I did not see a CIP submittal form for that capital reserve. It is written in the full document there, but I'm looking for getting Jim to do a submittal form for that capital reserve account. So it is listed as it comes forward to the board to look and weigh all the capital reserve and other cash amounts together. So that's really why I made that comment. Jim did have it nicely in that proposal, but he didn't know for sure what we were going to do tonight.
Yeah. And you know, quite honestly, I would not at this point say I'm supportive of putting another 100,000 against it. We have 300,000 on this. 100,000 is 4% of $2.3 million. It's a small amount of money. And we've had, and I'll continue to argue, we have, if we can find 100,000 bucks to either, I hate to use the word park, but I'm going to do it, to park on a capital reserve account, I'd much rather put that $100,000 to work to fix something now. And I have, you know, some ideas of what we want to do this. I would not be, and this is where the building project and the museum thing get conflicted. I would not be keen to put another 100,000. We haven't even come up with a reason to spend the 300 in the first place. So I know you want it, Linda, and that, you know, that's fine. You know, we may want to take this in two separate bites as to what the vote should be for the CIP. But I just think we need to give these kids, I shouldn't say kids, these people direction. We should give them directions to what they want to do. And Brad and I are in a different space on that. And I respect you for that, Brad.
Dave Senecal, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think that part of it, like last year with the 300,000, that got approved by the town. We put another $100,000 in, and the town approves that. It's giving us some direction as far as where the public wants to go with this. They're giving us an approval. They gave us 300. We asked for 100 more to put in a capital reserve, and that gets approved. They're sending us a message that they're kind of looking towards supporting the Libby. And that's what I think some of us are looking for, is some of that direction. It's in a capital reserve fund, but as Linda said, it can be used for repairs or whatever. It's not just for the rehab or the addition or whatever. It can be used for other things. So I don't have a problem if the public approves another 100,000. Then to me, they're telling us they like the idea and they want to see it continue until what's going to happen. That's my feeling.
Yeah, I'd just like to add one thing. I'll get to you, Paul, too. One of the reasons it brings me to the process that I'm kind of considering here and stuff on, you know, on the direction here is looking at our public safety building. We have a place, basically a placeholder with CIP for that. And that's a project that came in originally with a price tag of what, 11 million, something like that. We know that's not going to happen at that price tag, but yet it's still got in there and got a place mark, knowing that that's going to be changed in the future. That's kind of why I don't necessarily want to handcuff this one to a certain number at this stage anyway. I think it could be, in my mind, I think this could be determined at a year from now, once we get a better feel from the Friends as to what their obligation is going to be toward this and stuff. So that's kind of how I got to my place of thinking anyway on that. I'll go to Paul, then I'll come back to you, Linda. He had his hand up a few minutes ago. Paul?
So just so I'm clear, because I am literally trying to get clarity here. So we moved from, should we set a direction, to how much should we put in a capital reserve account? I don't know. And so those to me are two very separate issues. And so we probably at some point want to say, okay, we'll take a position on capital reserve funding, but I'm right back to, should we set a direction? Because I'm not being disrespectful here. I don't want to leave unclarity on the table. If I was being asked to raise money, my question would be, what do you want me to raise money for? And if it's open-ended, we may find not that we have to rely on what's a 501c3 far from us is doing. We may find ourselves looking at funds that have been raised for something clearly that we never approved. And I don't think that's appropriate. So I'm in two places. I mean, one is, what do we do about the capital reserve? But the other is, should we set a direction? And maybe we take those as two separate votes.
Linda?
Yeah, I was going to go back to a similar topic that Paul was on, was the fact that if the Friends go out and raise for a 2.9 project, and that's not what we're going to do, and that project had expanded collection and everything, and we aren't going to go down that direction, we're just got a little bump out in the back on the rehabilitation, then those people who are told that that's what's going to happen are going to be giving money for the wrong project. And so to me, I'm with Paul. We have to narrow it down, say that's the direction we're going. We had that other plan. It didn't fly. It's like the 8 million for the library, and they threw all theirs out and came back again with another plan. I expect with a public safety building, the same thing. That will be thrown out and we'll come back with another number. The library had 8 million on the CIP for a while holding the place, but that number was changed to 5 when a new plan came forward. Yep, Paul, there are two different things. There is the direction, and there is also what do we want to put money in a capital reserve account. And when I had the floor, I brought them both out, and I build on what Dave Senecal was talking about. I agree. I would have thought this would have come in at 1.4. It's not. So we've got to deal with what we have. So I think we need the direction, because that's what we as a board are heading towards, is that a smaller project, less amount of money. That's where I am. And that's why I think they need to go out and raise money for the project that the Board of Selectmen is going to support.
Any other comments or? Yeah, Kat, we'll have you speak on this.
Chime in.
Sure.
So I can appreciate the hesitance of going forward with the 2.9 after it received negative feedback last year, but that was under the condition or the understanding that there could be a much smaller option. But what we found is that the absolute smallest option we could go for is only $600,000 less than the project that was put forward last year. Conveniently, the $600,000 being what we have been offered from the Biber Foundation, given that we do the larger project. So the amount of money to the taxpayer is not going to be any different, but we are going to get a lot more from the larger project. We do have interested donors for the larger project already. And there's what we go back to Paul's idea of a vision for the museum. The smaller project has no vision, and it's very difficult to fundraise for a project that doesn't have any vision. Whereas we can create and develop a vision and a mission for the Libby with a larger project. And it will honestly be easier to fundraise for that. I can understand if you're not ready to commit to a number, but I would ask that you consider not committing to a smaller number just yet.
Thank you, Kat. Board members, any other questions or comments?
So since we have member staff here, may I ask a question of the member staff?
Sure.
Okay, so if we're going to have an expanded Libby, does the expanded Libby get additional exhibits?
We have the 200 North American species that are going to be donated on the condition that we do the expansion.
So we build out the building and 200 more artifacts come into the building?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So it comes with a price tag of that building now is going to be a place for additional exhibits.
Absolutely.
Okay. You've answered my question.
Okay, I just add to that. I agree. I think we have two different things here to vote on. So when we get ready to make a motion, I would suggest that we do two separate motions here. One for the capital reserve account, and one for the direction for the Libby to forward over to the Friends. Is everybody kind of in agreement with? Sounds like that's what everybody's kind of talking about, so,
I think that's right.
okay, so I'd entertain a motion to start with from somebody on one or the other.
I'll do the motion on the capital reserve account for $100,000 to be put in the 2021 to 2030 CIP plan.
I'll second that.
So a motion, a second to present a $100,000 capital reserve to the CIP committee. Any other discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll have a roll call vote. Linda,
Yes,
Dave Bowers,
Yes.
Dave Senical,
Yes,
Paul O'Brien,
No,
Brad Harriman votes yes. Okay. Now I would entertain a motion for the direction to forward over toward the Friends to the direction that the town wants to take towards the expansion renovation of the Libby.
I'll move that the Board of Selectmen approve and support the 2.3 million build plan subject to the Friends fundraising to be completed by end of year 2021.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second to get behind and support the $2.3 million ALBA presentation to the renovation expansion of the Libby Museum. Any other discussion on that?
I would just like to remind the board that the smaller expansion does not include exhibit storage, display room for artists, that was Dr. Libby's vision, or a dedicated room for children's education programs.
Okay, board members, any other discussion?
Brad,
Yeah, Dave?
I think that to me, the 2.9 would make more sense, only because if we go that route, it's been said before that the Berber Foundation and the classrooms that Kat just mentioned and stuff is part of that. So if we take the 2.9 and back out the 3.5 million from Berber, we're down to the 2.3. So it wouldn't make any, it would make more sense to me to support the 2.9 than the 2.3.
Brad,
Dave,
can I make a comment?
yeah, yes, sure, Linda. Yep.
If it's a 2.3 and the Friends of the Libby go out and raise 500,000, that is less onto the burden of the taxpayer. And that is where you get the value. Then you see the value that the public is putting on that facility. So yes, there's 600,000 difference, but we're looking at the impact to the taxpayer, and that the 2.3 with money raised by the Friends would have a less of an impact on the taxpayer and the tax rate. And that's what why I'm supporting that.
I think the reason I'm kind of leaning towards not supporting this avenue here is because of what Kat had said, yeah, and Dave mentioned too, that, yeah, it was to draw on the 600,000, which would make them even at that point. But the Friends are going to be committed to go out and raise that 500,000 regardless, in addition to that 600. So you're still going to have equivalent to the same tax burden, and you're going to be getting more of a building there, which is why I kind of wanted to hold off on directing this right now and let them come to us, say, okay, we're going to, Beaver will kick in 600,000, and I'm just picking numbers out. We have no idea what they're talking about. And the Friends might say, okay, yeah, we're going to, bring in another 750,000 or whatever it is to bring that down to whatever that number would add up to be. So that's where I'm at with this thought process anyway. So, Paul?
No, Linda had her hand up first.
Oh, I was going to
Okay,
give
Linda.
it to you. I guess that within that, and I think we've seen some articles in the paper also, letters to the editor. This goes with it and all. They were looking at this being an all year around museum. We don't even have, not the Wright Museum is all year round. My other concern is part of what's unique about the Libby is it's a small natural history museum and has its own character. And once we expand that, it becomes a huge building. We still have parking lot issues. That's why I would prefer the Libby to stay what it is. There is art right now in the Libby Museum. There is classrooms and there have been programs for the children for years in that facility. There was art in that room, all sorts of programs. So my child went there, so I know there was. So.
Paul, you had your hand up too?
Yeah, again, this is the Libby is, if you look at the presentation I gave you, let's not try to make it what it isn't. It doesn't have a lot of volume. It is a great place for kids. If you want to run a year-round museum, we can do that at Great Hall. We have another example of that called the Wright Museum, who does that. We shouldn't be, every time the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston gets a new exhibit, they don't get bigger unless someone gives them a lot of money. What they do is they rotate. I think the Libby is beautiful as it is. I think the Libby needs to be repaired because it's broken. I think the Libby, anything beyond that is, I think, something that puts us in a place I just don't think I could personally support. And my last point again is we owe the Friends of the Libby clarity. The voters need to know what they're going out and raising money for. I see a website that is raising money for a project we have never approved. I see things in letters to the editor, which I find are interesting ways to raise money, saying town hasn't done their job, therefore you got to raise money. That's an interesting fundraising model. I've never seen that one before. I think we owe them clarity. So my argument is if it's 2.3 and they came back and said we just raised $1.8 million and we want to push up to the next level, if they came back with that number next year, I bet you each one of us would be doing cartwheels and saying, maybe, yeah, maybe, yeah. But right now, I'd like to give them a goal that can be achieved and a goal that the taxpayer could support. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay,
So
any other comments? So we have a motion and a second on the floor to, I want to make sure I word this right. So Linda, help me if I'm wrong here, or if you want to repeat how you worded your
Paul,
motion.
This was Paul's motion. It was my second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your second, okay.
The Board of Selectmen endorses the 2.3 motion subject to the fundraising of the Friends of the Libby for evaluation and final determination at the end of 2021.
Okay. So do a roll call vote on that. Linda?
Yes.
Dave Bowers?
Yeah.
Dave Senical? I didn't hear you, Dave. I saw your lips move, but
Okay, no,
couldn't hear you. Okay, Paul?
no.
Yes. No.
Yeah.
I support my own motion.
And I'm gonna vote no on this also.
Mhm.
So that passed 3-2. Okay. So thank you, everybody, for that. And you guys are gonna be set what you, Jim and Kat, what you need to do with CIP tomorrow.
So CIP tomorrow is, Jim, we're just gonna have to moderate the form because Linda's right, the form didn't, needs to come in with a 100 on it. And we'll let the CIP folks know what, well, I don't know, yeah, I guess we owe them an obligation to tell them what we discussed tonight.
Yeah, the form is already set up to be able to have that information put on, and I'm letting the planner know as we speak.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'd, I'll speak for myself. I'll let Dave speak to him for himself too. That I'd appreciate if when they ask about the 3-2 vote, that they understand that at least I was wanted to leave the option open to possibly go with a larger project. And I'll let Dave speak to his intent there if he wants it forwarded over to the CIP tomorrow.
Yeah, my intent was basically the same as Brad's. I think with, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, okay. Just so you know, we're not voting against the Libby being
Right,
funded at all. We wanted a,
Right.
just a different project, that's all. Okay, thank you.
Right.
None of us voted
different
against it.
parameters.
Right.
Yep.
It was just different price tags.
Okay, next on our agenda is the Public Safety Building Committee establishment. Mr. Pinio, you're gonna speak to us about this one?
So, Mr. Chairman, as you know, we've done some preliminary work on a public safety building. We're currently getting ready to investigate moving forward, get a cost benefit analysis of separated facilities. But quite frankly, we're going to need some help from the Board of Selectmen and probably some stakeholders within the community. So we need to get some help, and I believe Paul wants to speak on this as well.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as we know, the price tag on the proposed public safety building is as I've said many times, it's an eye-popping number. And there's a lot of desire to move this project forward. And for the last week at the capital improvement team, there was a fairly direct question that was asked, hey, if this is a big project, shouldn't we have a committee of people working on it? And I think the answer needs to be, of course, yes. So my proposal, it's kind of the same that we do, I think, for other things, is let's put a couple of Board of Selectmen member on it, and I'd be glad to volunteer to do that. I don't know if anybody else wants to do it. I think we need the fire chief and the police chief on this. I think we need a couple of members of the public on this. And if you guys are okay with this, I'd ask Amy if Jim's okay or Amy's okay. I'd ask Amy to do what we normally and customarily do, is to put it out on the homepage that says we're looking for volunteers, and constitute this thing with some degree of diligence and dispatch, so that we can get about the business. Because I think what Jim is and the team is trying to do is they're trying to figure out 1 or 2 buildings, real estate, and a whole bunch of stuff. And while I'm at it, and I think Linda's going to talk about it later, I think we probably ought to have the same kind of conversation about the docks. There's there's a lot of CIP discussion around the sequencing of the docks and expanding it, not expanding it, all that kind of stuff. And we probably need to get a committee there. I'll let Linda speak to that, because I think you want to talk about that now or later, Linda. I don't know, it's up to you. But first things first, I'd like to recommend to us that we get a public safety building committee going, meeting frequently, so we can get some clarity for the town manager and for the voters.
Yeah, I'll volunteer for that.
Brad, I support what Paul's saying. One of the things that I personally have found missing on this project is any discussion in the public about it and where we're going. And I think that is very important if we're going to get the buy-in from the voters of this town. I think having a committee report come back to the Board of Selectmen on a regular basis makes all the sense in the world to me. So I support it.
Okay, thank you. Paul?
I think I heard my beloved colleague, Mr. Senecal, sign himself up.
Yeah, I did. I was on the other committee, and it's the same architects that are doing the work. So I think I can work with Bob on that. Plus,
you're on the police commission, so you have a vested deep background. It's not you have a vested interest, but you have background as to what they're trying to accomplish. So I think that would be great.
Yeah, there has
Linda?
been some discussion with the police commission on this.
I think we also should have a member or two from the budget committee to be part of this. I think that is an
Oh,
important
you're right.
group to bring along with us. So I would like to see if they
You're
could to give us one or two members for that committee. Maybe two
So,
members.
you know what, Linda, you're exactly right. I think I think we should do that because this is a big price tag and we got to probably get them in the tent. Do you folks have any objection if, because I'm a budget committee Selectmen liaison person. Do you guys have any objection if I just reach out to Mr. McDonald and ask him, or should we do it some other way? Ask him if he wants to nominate some members.
I think you absolutely do it that way. You ask the chairman of the committee and he can find out from his board who would like to serve in that capacity. I think that's absolutely.
I agree.
You okay with that,
Yep,
Dave
no,
Senecal?
sounds good.
Yes, I am,
All right,
Paul.
I'll reach out to John McDonald tonight. Thank you for that. I missed that one, Linda. You're exactly right. We probably should do the same thing on the dock thing too, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess I'd entertain a motion then to probably establish the Public Safety Building Committee.
I'll move to establish a public safety building committee with two members of the Board of Selectmen, currently Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Senecal and Mr. O'Brien. Two members of the budget committee to be determined by John McDonald. Two members of the public to be advertised by Ms. Amy Muccio. I hope you're okay with that, Amy. Purpose of the committee is to help us understand the priorities and the process to get us to bring a warrant article for a public safety building or complex to the voters. Whew, that was pretty good. I like that. Whew.
Anybody want to second that?
I'll second it. I'll let Dave take the second.
Dave, take this.
Whatever.
Okay,
As long as Paul has it written down.
I don't have it written down. I made that up. It was pretty good though.
Yeah, it was.
I was going to ask him to. I was going to ask him to repeat it.
Oh, geez.
Don't do that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to establish the Public Safety Building Committee. Any other discussion? Do a roll call vote. Linda?
Yes.
Dave Bowers?
Yeah.
Dave Senecal?
Yes.
Paul O'Brien?
Yes.
And Brad Herman votes yes also. All right, thank you. Now, next on the agenda, Paul, is the 2020 Halloween trick or treat.
What kind of candy we're gonna have?
He's dying for this. He must want to go get candy.
So, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to bring in front of the board this evening, just for a little bit of planning. Halloween is going to be sneaking up on us pretty quickly here. There's a lot of discussion out there about what's going to happen with Halloween with COVID-19. So with that said, I know that there's a webinar scheduled at the end of the month. I believe the Municipal Association is holding it. But I think we got to start preparing what our decision is going to be regarding Halloween. I know a lot of communities that are very rural settings, they're continuing with their Halloween because people are essentially trick-or-treating in vehicles going to their neighbors because they're separated by miles. But some of the other more densely populated communities have made or are looking toward not having Halloween. So I think it's prudent that we begin giving some thought to this. We obviously don't need a decision tonight, but we definitely need to start discussing it.
I guess, has Chief Scansey weighed in on this at all yet, Jim, or is he would also be part of the discussion, I would think, going forward, making a decision?
Yeah, so that the fire department has always held a large event there. Haven't had an opportunity to speak with the chief on this one yet. He's actually hasn't been here and involved in it, but I can certainly have a conversation with the chief and go from there.
Okay, Linda?
I would like us to try to survey the residents on Clark Road and East Clark Road who get just annihilated with the number of kids that go up and down there, and their comfortability of having trick or treat and people coming to their houses. And if we do decide to do it, I hope that we do what happened last year, that we collect some candy for those Clark Road families, because it's unbelievable the number. And I think after that, if whatever way we decide, if we decide to hold it, we can try to strongly encourage masks, and families can make the decision on whether they have their kids go or not. I know that my grandkids won't, because I'm going to do a Halloween hunt on my property, and they can go find the candy on the land.
Paul?
I try not to be very disruptive when I go looking for candy on Clark Road. I just want you guys all to know that, all right? Is it a crazy idea? Is it a crazy idea to think about, and I know it's maybe too late in the season, to say Halloween is going to be at the high school? And, you know, and children and families can come in, and anybody who wants to set up a table and pass out candy to kids could do it there. And it's nowhere else. I mean, I know that's kind of, it's not a Halloween experience, but is that kind of a dumb idea? It is. Linda's saying, yes, it's a dumb idea. So
I'm not sure that the school is gonna, I'm not sure that the school is gonna want people, that number of people coming in.
Right, they want to go over to Linda's house and hunt for stuff.
So, you know, are there other options? You know, could we do something staggered at the neck or on another piece of property? I don't know, but I think we've got to talk about it before it's too late.
Yeah, the problem we have, and you're exactly right, everybody, the problem we have here is some people are going to be scared to death having someone knocking on their door, and that's a legitimate concern. And then there's going to be some people who are not knowing what they're supposed to do and want their kids to go out and have some fun. And somehow we have to, and this is probably not in our remit, but somehow we have to probably square that circle a little bit. I don't know.
Hey, Brad,
Yes, Dave?
the adult hay wagon has all new tires on it this year.
They probably won't get worn out either, will they?
No, probably not.
I
Just
think
for your
this is a
information.
difficult decision.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to decide, you know, because it's such a tradition and kids look forward to it, but yet we have the COVID-19, and we should probably look at where our community and our region is closer to Halloween, because that also might help us make a decision. If there's not a whole lot, but if we're having a spike, I think we might make a different decision.
Yeah, I'm in favor of putting it off for a little while.
Yeah.
The
I
decision.
think till you talk to the chiefs, I think we ought to just put it off for another couple of weeks.
Okay, I'll keep it on the horizon, and I'll talk with the chiefs, and but we'll keep it on the agenda.
Yep, sounds good.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is a approval of our 2020 budget schedule meetings.
Yeah,
Y'all got
so
a copy of that?
We're basically, we took your input from last meeting. We're working through the scheduling of departments. We're finalizing a bunch of the budgets this week with departments, a couple of them next week. I anticipate Friday morning, you'll be receiving the agency's requests for 2021, because if you recall, we are meeting with the agencies virtually next Wednesday at 6:30. So you should be receiving those Friday morning, the agency requests. And then the following week, you should be receiving your budget books.
Have you heard
Okay,
anything yet about insurance, or is it still way, way, way too early?
I believe that Amy has requested all of the insurance and balance sheets. As far as the status of those at this point, I do not know where that's at. Amy's got that all into a folder. We'll be going through it tomorrow. And like I said, hopefully tomorrow afternoon or Monday, or excuse me, Friday morning, you will be receiving that information.
All right, so
all right.
what we have here tonight are the actual dates that we decided on, that we're having meetings and so forth. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
This one.
Which night were you gonna send takeout dinner to all of us with, Dave?
What?
What?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Dave. Yeah, Dave.
Well, I
Okay.
certainly I don't want what Paul had for supper tonight.
I guess yogurt isn't in this year.
No,
Hey, we're being
it's not.
watched on television. Cut it out. I had yogurt and granola. All right, cut it out.
Yes.
I know.
Okay, next item on the agenda is a discussion about the, yes,
Brett, are we gonna assign days when we're gonna have meals, or are we gonna have meals? What's our decision on this? Because usually we sign up ahead so we know what day we're supposed to come in with food, or we cannot do that this year because of COVID-19.
I guess maybe I missed something at the other meeting. These other meetings, the off meetings from our regular ones, are we gonna be doing these in person then? Or are we
Yeah.
doing these remotely still? Oh, we're in person.
We can do them whichever way the board feels. We can do a hybrid model, we can do live, or we can do completely virtual. It's truly your discretion as to what the board wants to do.
Yeah, that's right, now it's coming back. I remember we talked about that now.
Right.
Yeah, I think that hybrid model works well. It does with the planning board meetings anyway. We've had good luck with that, so. What's everybody's feeling about, the food thing then, bringing food in for, more than just yourself there and stuff, so. We all comfortable with it?
Paul
Okay.
isn't.
No
I
food.
mean, I can bring my own. I don't feel strongly one way or another. And, we can bring in our own, or I can eat when I get home.
Yeah.
I just don't have any problem.
Ramekin, yeah, my point on this, Brad, if you wouldn't mind, is I would, if people want to bring their own food and we're going to be physically in a building, I think I'm comfortable with that. The sharing of food, I think, is probably still something that, at least personally, I would think we would not want to do at the moment. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah,
Dave and Dave,
I don't have any problem with us meeting. And I think it works better if we could all be together with the budgets and stuff. I think it makes it a lot easier than having a meeting this way. But that's just my opinion, so whatever you want to do.
In the past, Christy and I have paid for pizza if somebody arranges to bring it in, we can still do that.
I like the hybrid, and the reason I like the hybrid is because we're going to be getting into the cold season, and any one of us might get up and just not feel 100%. We can decide still be at the meeting going hybrid. I have a grandson who had allergies, woke up with a cough, and so he didn't go to school. Later in the day, he was fine, but we might find ourselves in some of those situations. So I think hybrid makes all the sense in the world.
Yep.
And sometimes we may all be there, sometimes we may not.
I agree with that. I
Yep,
agree.
that's fine with me.
Yeah.
Mr.
And
Chairman.
Dave Bowers can always give us all a
Yes.
gift certificate to pizza.
Jim.
The one thing that I would say is we can absolutely do that. However, I think we've already agreed that the agencies, based on the travel distance and the fact that we don't know where they're coming from, is still going to be in the virtual format.
That's right.
Yeah.
right, yep,
Yes, great.
yep, that sounds good.
We did agree to
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you for that
What
reminder.
time is that, Jim? What time is that one gonna be?
I will verify that with Amy, whether that's going to be 6 or 6:30, but I will verify that and get that to you tomorrow.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
30, because I asked her that this morning.
6:30?
That's what she told some of the agencies that called this morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I think by listening to everybody, the consensus might be that for the food thing, that we should probably plan on bringing our own food
Mhm.
and not having the sharing of the food this year. I think it sounds like it's a safer way to go. All right.
Coffee machine wouldn't be a bad idea.
No, that's
Yeah.
out.
Paul, I thought you were gonna donate an espresso machine.
I was gonna donate yours.
Okay. Next item is the discussion about a letter received from the EDC regarding the dock expansion and stuff. So, Jim, are you going to speak to us about this a little bit? Or?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, first of all, I apologize for getting this to you a little late. There's a little confusion on my part. With that said, I'm not going to try to recreate anything. Kathy Eaton is here to be able to speak on the behalf of this evening, on behalf of the EDC. So without further ado, I'll hand it right over to her.
Okay.
I didn't run away. I just left my paperwork over there. Thank you so much. And I'm glad it was towards the end of the agenda. I tried to get into the town hall and that didn't work out very well. So it was a hybrid meeting. So trying to keep track of what's going on and stuff. So thank you for putting us on the agenda tonight and apologize for any confusion. The letter somehow didn't, I don't know exactly what happened, but anyway, we picked it up yesterday at our EDC meeting and Linda and Matt got it back on the agenda. So we talked about this at our meeting in August. And as you can see from the letter, I mean, if you've had a chance to read it, and then Dave Marr, who's a fairly new member, well, he's probably been on 6-7 months, has been great help and did a great job of putting together a summary of basically some information that we gathered. We went to the state as well. We didn't feel completely comfortable with the statistics that we got from the state. So we kind of lowered our expectations. What we originally had was probably close to double what we saw in terms of the economic impact of the town. We decided to come in at a much more conservative level, but the evidence that we've gathered so far, and we want to get some more anecdotal information as well to back this up with talking to some of the businesses in town, as in what an average somebody comes into Black's, or somebody comes in to Bailey's Bubble, and what kind of money they spend coming into town when they come from the docks, and or any visitor who comes in. But we know that if we take the number of basic, as we said, the averages of the people coming into the docks for just the weekends, we're not even looking at the ones for the week. It's a significant amount of money coming in to the coffers of the people, of the businesses downtown, where so many of our citizens are employed, both in both year-round and but by and large, of course, so many more in the summertime. So it's the economic impact that we really felt that this should be brought to the attention of the selectmen. As you know, the EDC is basically an ad hoc committee of the Board of Selectmen, and it's our job to let you know about things that involve and have an economic impact here in our community. And we feel that this very much does. We know that there is a dock committee, and I heard a reference to something about that earlier, and I apologize again for not being at the meeting early on when we were talking about the new committee for the public safety building. It was a reference to the dock committee. So is that just a reference to the old one?
No, I'm going to propose, after you do this, us creating a new one.
Okay, all right, okay, that's okay. I wondered if there was something, so catching up on that. We watched at the capital improvements program. I attended that meeting, and there was clearly interest and a feeling that we should be pushing off the expansion. And we feel at the Economic Development Committee that the expansion, which is probably the least expensive of the various projects, various phases of this dock, should be a priority. But perhaps it should even be considered as one project and go forward as a bond issue rather than trying to break it up over several years. But in any case, what we really want to bring to your attention is that it's very important and it has a very important impact on the business community. So I'm not going to read this all over. You guys are perfectly capable of reading it. Do you have any questions about it?
Paul?
Yeah, thanks for writing the letter. Appreciate that. I did read it the other day. A couple of questions. One is, you're not I don't think you're inferring that what we would do is expand the docks before we do anything else. You're kind of suggesting get it back into the sequence of events. Is that right, Kathy?
Well, really, yes. Well, if you look at the report from, and I'm not going to try to pronounce that name because I haven't done it enough. It sounds like a report to me.
Ty and Bond. There you go. Ty and Bond.
Ty and Bond, right.
Yep.
So if you look at that, there's really the recreational docks, and then there's the commercial docks where we have the large cribs, I want to call them, because it was a little old fashioned there, but all the big retaining walls and all that sort of thing. And we looked at the number of years that those were out in terms of their usefulness at this point. Then we look at what it is to tag on to at least all but one of the docks in them right off the bat after getting, and some of those necessary repairs to the recreational docks have been made already, the most emergency ones at the time the report was done. But that the recreational docks could be handled before the big retaining walls or the walls along the river, if they had to be divided up. But basically, yes, let's get this up, move it up as a priority, and maybe the whole project as a priority and do it together, because the whole thing is such a critical part of our community. I mean, our waterfront is the heart of our town, for both our townspeople as well as the heart of our economic viability. I mean, without the lake there, Wolfeboro doesn't amount to much, as we all know. So,
I just had a second question, Brad, if I could, please.
Certainly.
Thank you. And the predicate assumption you made is that the businesses downtown would get a benefit. And it seems to me if you put more boat traffic in there and you do an average dollar value per boat, you probably do get a benefit. Do you think at some point the businesses might stay open past 5 o'clock?
Do you want my opinion as to whether they should or whether they will?
I'm not trying to lever anybody, but when I hear people talk about the docks, the two things that they talk about, I shouldn't say complain, the two things that are concerned is parking at the docks can be a pain in some part of your body because they're always stuffed. They really are, and all that stuff. So that there's a rationale that would say you should maybe expand them. But then once they're expanded, with the people who come into town, their options are buy ice cream.
You mean people come into the town docks at night?
Correct.
Well, I agree that businesses that would be good for the economy of the town if the businesses in town stayed open at night. But of course,
my point, I'll shut up. If there's an economic lift, it would seem to me that should, and we can't force that. But if there's an economic lift, that ought to be a conversation that somebody should have that says, no, we're not going to stay open past 5 o'clock. Or, yeah, we are. So just something to think about.
Well, there are several businesses that do. And I think it goes off in a whole tangent, a whole nother area, because there certainly are lots of ways that you could tie that together. But I think that even if we capture just what we're capturing now by increasing the number of people during the daytime, then you're going to see that increase. So yes.
I think it's a great idea. I think what you're doing is a great idea. I just think the taxpayer will ask the question. That's all you need to know.
I think good questions, and the taxpayer should ask the questions. And I think that we have to provide them with all the information that we can so that they can make the best decision that they can. But that's, we've got to get it out there. And you know, a lot of those taxpayers are some of the people who work downtown.
Linda?
Yeah, what I would like to see happen here, well, first let me thank the EDC for putting some figures behind why we want to expand the docks, and that's part of the justification to take that move. But I would like us to take the old dock committee and let it finish it has finished its project, and that we form a new dock committee and take a look at where we are today. And the reason I want to do that was all of a sudden the expansion to the docks went off the CIP, and it was, I don't believe it was is in the best interest of the town. And I think there should be a town committee that meets and talks about it and moves this project forward. And the other committee hasn't met for about a year. So I was looking at a committee similar to what Paul was looking at, 2 members of the Board of Selectmen, see if we can get 2 people from the Budget Committee, 2 people from the public to be on this committee, that we meet regularly. We talk about the different ways the project could go forward, whether we bond it all. We look at the statistics that the chamber has, that the EDC has started in terms of economic benefit for expanding the docks. We can look at sequencing, and then we can look at whether it makes sense to do the whole project, bond it, and take care of the parking lot at the same time, and take care of that whole area and bring it up to a level that I think we all are looking for down there. So that's my rationale for establishing a new dock committee.
Might be nice, if I could interject, it might be nice to have a member of the EDC on that committee.
Okay, I'll do one EDC.
As long as we have somebody who is kind of a member of the general public, that would be good too.
Dave Senical?
Yeah, most all of that work is already done. I mean, the committee that I was on, we had everything done. We had basically approvals from the state. We had information, stuff to back up what we were trying to do. And then this Ty Bond report came out that just blew us out of the water. That thing was a surprise to us. Nobody knew about it on the committee at all. Nobody told us about it. And everybody just said, screw it. Basically, we're not going to do any more until this thing gets sorted out. Hasn't been sorted out, but all that information, Linda, is already there.
I know that, Dave. I know that that's all there, and I was on that committee when that happened, but we need to pick this project up again. We need to get a new group of people, and we've got to be vocal and move this forward. And I have all the same feelings you have about what happened.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of that feeling within that committee, and I think that's why we're looking at forming a new committee. I'm willing to be on that new committee.
What's that?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Linda.
I'm willing to be on that new committee, and I'd be looking for another selectman to join me. Paul? Okay.
I'm in the same space as you guys are. If you think about it, it was probably, and my time may be off, but I think it was like 5 years ago. We had a public group discussion about the parking lot. And so there's some stuff that's been done around the parking lot. And I remember the conversation was we don't want to obstruct views. I remember that kind of part of it, which I thought was interesting. We have, and Dave, you're exactly right. We got to fix the damned existing docks, because even I got a splinter on it this year. I mean, and they're ugly. We got to deal with the seawall. We got to deal with, and all that stuff's written down on a hunk of paper. The tie-in bond stuff was, I don't know whether it was a surprise, but it sure was out of right field. Would probably be the right way to characterize it. And I think we just need to sequence this thing and let the pros tell us what the right sequence of events is. The only thing I would ask Linda, if for all of us to think about is, if we've got this data, which I believe we have, why can't we get this puppy wrapped up by December?
Should have been
We can
wrapped up
look at
last year.
My point exactly, Dave. We're about a year late and $1 short. Why can't we just get it
we
done by
are.
December?
Well, we could try to do that once we get the members on. As you were saying, we've got 3 conceptual designs for the parking area. We've got a lot of piecemeal stuff and nobody's taking the lead on it. And part of it got thrown off the CIP. So we need to pull ourselves together. If we can get something by December pulled back together, fine. But I think we just need to get to the business of putting this project together and sequencing it. And I think we're looking at what is the cost? What are we looking at cost?
1.2. Last time, Linda, I think we looked at it. Linda and Dave, you probably know better than me. I think the number, when you tallied it all up, was 1,250, roughly speaking. Which is, that's half of we just had a conversation about another place. That's half of what that would be. And Kathy, the reason I said a member of the general public, I think it's important to get people exposed to these kinds of deliberations who are not, who are like outside of, the normal and customary people we have around us. I think the public, because they're going to have to buy in on this. And I think we need to get people interested from the
Absolutely,
public.
and that's why, and get somebody from the business community and somebody,
Sure.
has an interest in that side of it. I think it's very important. And reaching out to the Chamber of Commerce is not a bad idea at all. I think, we need all the stakeholders we can get in this, because that's the only way we're going to get it sold to the taxpayer. And the taxpayer needs to know that it's important to them. That's the key. It isn't, sometimes people say, well, they don't want to do something for the business community. Well, the business community is a huge part of this town as well, the people who work there. I mean, Wolfeboro isn't going to be the same if we don't have that. And it's going to be, we know there's some stuff here that's going to be happening. There's going to be fallout from the tough years that we've had here. And we need to be ready to invest in that. And I'm so pleased to see you guys stepping up to it. So I think that's great. And we're really happy to do that. And you've got a lot of support from some new members from the community that are just getting involved on the EDC as well, which is great to see, because we've got quite a few new members there too. So,
And it would be nice to have one of those new members on this committee. I think that's kind of where we're looking at, is put new energy, a new look on where we're going here. So I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen establish a new doc committee with 2 Board of Selectmen, myself and Paul, 2 members from the Budget Committee, 2 members from the public, and 1 member from the EDC.
Second.
Motion is second on the floor to establish a new committee. Any other discussion? We now have a roll call vote. Linda?
Yes?
Dave Bowers? I take that as a yes. Dave Senical?
Yes.
Paul O'Brien?
Yes.
And Brad Hammer votes yes also. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Yeah,
Jim.
just point of clarification. Is there an expectation to have staff on this?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think we can do anything without staff with us.
No, I know we had talked about it with the police commission, but staff wasn't mentioned for this particular committee. So I just wanted to make sure that there was intention of staff to be on it. Thank you.
Yes, and it'd be whatever staff members you feel are appropriate to be with us on that committee.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry I interrupted, Brad. I shouldn't have done that. I apologize.
Okay. Paul?
And I think that because this is important and because it needs to go quickly, I think the comportment of the participants should be something that we want to make sure we do. We stay on message. We avoid anything other than keeping focused. And I think that's important because we got a lot of work to do in a short period of time. And we're going to be asking members of, I think of Jim's team to, I wouldn't say drop everything they're doing, but they're in the middle of budget season. They're trying to land the budget they got for this year. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And what we probably want to do is minimize swirl and maximize focus. Pardon me for the lecture, but I felt I had to do that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anything else, Kathy? Or you?
Oh, thank you so
Sounds
much.
good.
I really appreciate that. And I'm really excited and pleased. And we're right there to support you on this project. So thank you so much.
Great job.
All right. Thanks, Kathy. Okay. Next on our agenda is other business. Do we have any other business this evening to just bring up? Linda?
Yes, I have a number of things. The first thing is that where the EDC committee was talking about the need for a recording secretary. Amy is having to leave her job to come up and take notes, or to take a recording and take it home and provide minutes for us. And we would like the board to, and the town manager to advertise for a recording secretary. This position can be one in which somebody can take a tape and do it at home. And we may get more takers because there may be mothers at home who aren't working because they are having to be there for their kids. I know this committee could use it. It would be a good idea to see if we could also do that for Wolfeboro Waters and not have Marie coming in. In other words, let our regular staff be staff and only come in as emergency, and let the other secretaries take minutes the other way. I think we also have Michelle, who does our minutes, who has two jobs doing our minutes and that. And so maybe, Jim, you can put out advertisement on our website and maybe in the paper to see if we can get those, get some secretaries. I know it is not.
What are you paying per hour? Do you have a fee, an amount now?
That's set in the budget. I'm not sure what that is to be right off the top of my head. Amy did put together a posting for a job description. Okay. Yeah, Amy did put together a posting with a brief job description. So the intent would be to get this out probably early next week and go from there.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Paul?
I support that that proposal, and to put 2,000%. We need to start putting the right people in the right positions. And what we're doing is diluting Jim's office. We're diluting Dave's office. It's dilution. And so if we're going to do something like that, Jim, my advice to you would be you gotta figure out how much it's going to cost, put it in the budget, and then we assign it out to the committees that have budgets.
We have it. I mean, the EDC has it in its budget. It's been unable to have a secretary.
But we don't have one for a Waters committee.
No, Wolfeboro Waters does not, but the EDC does. And I think the planning board secretary is not at the meeting. She listens to a tape and produces the minutes. I think that may be the answer for us to get somebody to do it, because this has been a hard.
Great idea.
Yeah, the planning board secretary has been at the last couple of meetings, taking them right there too. So, but they do have that option. They can just take it off the tape and do it that way. So, yep. Kathy, did you want to ask a question again?
This has been a chronic problem for the Economic Development Committee. We meet at 8 in the morning, and it's always been tough to find somebody. And then when it falls back on a staff member, they're losing an hour and a half of the work they needed. Sometimes Ann had to do it, but lately, Matt's been trying to do the minutes, and Amy's just so overwhelmed. And you hit it right there, Paul. Absolutely, you're taking the professional staff, and when we need to find somebody out there, and reaching them is difficult at the communication level to find the people that are looking for that kind of work. So I think that because the minutes can be done, done from recording. People been doing that forever, go back to an old way. So just to add that in.
As I mentioned, I have a possible candidate that does some work for us, if you want to get in touch, do you have an hourly rate you're paying?
I don't know what it is offhand, but I know we'll figure that out. It's just a block amount in the budget, but
Okay,
Not-
my second thing that came from the EDC, we were talking about the outside service line 380, which was dealing with the town's community calendar. And I would like the board to approve us changing the word in the justification so it's clearer on exactly what that publication is. And I would like it to read something like this: the town of Wolfeboro's community calendar is produced, maintained, and distributed by the Wolfeboro Area Chamber of Commerce. And the reason I wanted it worded that way is because it's our town calendar. The chamber has their own calendar, and people are getting mixed up between which calendar we're talking about. And so if that change in wording, and I can send it to you, Jim, if you would like, would make it clear that we're talking about the town's calendar. It's a community calendar and not a chamber calendar.
Yeah, Paul?
I'd like to, I think that's great, because what we're doing is we're saying who's responsible. I'd just like to make sure that we say, and that community calendar is published, like, I'm making up the numbers, once a month, once a quarter, and it's available in paper form or on the internet.
We'll get that information. I think we
You know,
just
that would be-
need,
Wouldn't that be good? If somebody says, okay, they publish it, but well, where
Right.
do I go get it? How many times
Yeah.
can I look at it? Clarity would be good.
yeah, I think that justification will come out of Mary when we talk about it. But people, when they were reading it, even the EDC was confused of exactly what that is. And my last thing under other business, and it was put in the packet, is the town manager's evaluation form. And today was the day that if you have changes to that you want to make, I need them, because all of us need to complete those evaluation forms by the 1st of October. So the board, and get them to me so the board can go into non-public session on October 7th and review each of our evaluations of Jim. And that whole schedule was in the packet for you. What?
No change, no changes.
I'd love that.
Let's go. Yeah, I had no changes.
Okay.
Dave and Dave, do you guys have any changes, or are we all good now?
I'm
And I
fine.
sent it all to you electronically. If you need it again electronically, let me know.
So I think we're all good as far as any changes go, Linda. So now we just have to all get these done and to you by October 1st, so we can
Gotta fill it in.
Sounds
move ahead
good.
with it, right? Okay, thank you, Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
Any other business tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to committee reports. Linda, I'll start with you if you'd like.
Yeah, I've attended 2 CIP meetings as the alternate with Paul. On September 8th, I was one of the poll workers at the town, at the elections in the town held. I had a Wolfeboro Waters Committee in which we updated the activities so far for this year and worked on the 2021 budget. EDC met last Tuesday and I attended that. And I have been working with a group for childcare for school-age children during the Governor Wentworth hybrid schedule. And I'm pleased to say that we have 3 camps that are willing to provide childcare and to assist in remote learning. And the next thing we're going to be working on is to raise funds to support families who are unable to pay for in full for this program. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Linda. Dave Bowers?
Christie and I, by the way, did give some money to the town for various charitable purposes, which you still have. No committee reports.
Thank you, Dave. Dave Senical?
We can't hear you, Dave. Dave, gotta turn on your mic.
There you go.
How's that?
Better.
Perfect.
That's better.
Work at the polls, same as Linda. I had a ZBA meeting. I've had 2 police commission meetings. Those are always exciting, right, Paul? And then I missed a meeting tonight at 5 o'clock, Friends of Abenaki. It obviously conflicts with this meeting. That's it.
Thank you, Dave. Paul?
Yeah, well, we all had a Libby trustees meeting last week. I've attended CIP meetings with Linda, and it really has been going, I think, pretty well. I attended Wolfeboro Waters meeting. I took a takeaway from the Wolfeboro Waters Committee to kind of help the Granite State News explain what the Wolfeboro Waters team is all about, and that article came out in today's Granite State News. And you'll also see a personal article from me that I wrote in the Granite State News concerning the broadband situation. There's a lot of discussion out there in the ethosphere about that, and I'm trying not to engage in that stuff. I'll be more than happy to answer questions, maybe through some other medium on that. The long story short, we had an outage the other day from Atlantic Broadband. And that was an outage that occurred over in the Gilmanton area, took down half of their infrastructure. Fiber cut, tree hits fiber, electricity lights fiber on fire. It was a bad situation. And I hate to be, tawdry about this, but if for those of us who were out there didn't like the effect, got 40,000 other people in this state that have that effect on them every day of the week. And that's not a good situation, so we need to go fix that. But I thank you guys for letting me work on the broadband thing. I've told the public I will not stop. We're going to find a way to get everybody covered if we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. As with Dave and Linda there, I was at the elections last Tuesday there. Just want to say too, I think the staff, everybody that worked on that did a tremendous job. The way it was set up, it flowed very well. I don't think it could have gone any better, to tell you the truth. It was well done by everybody involved with that. We had the Betters Libby trustees last week. Had a Friends of Libby Museum meeting last week, and we finalized our updated bylaws. We'll be presenting those for vote at our annual meeting, which is going to be on September 29th at 6 o'clock. Everybody, it's going to be out in the paper. We're going to hit social media with it and stuff, so everybody be aware of that. And I had a planning board meeting last night. The only public hearing we had was the continuation of Brewster Academy for a kind of remodeling and redoing the Rogers Center, their old gymnasium, turning it into an art center. And that was it for me. Next on, town manager's report.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Working on budgets, we're getting close. It's coming together quite well. It's kind of scary, some of the numbers, but the department heads are doing a great job. We are seeing an increase in the New Hampshire retirement system. Those numbers will be coming out, but the New Hampshire retirement system did set their rates, and there's an increase there effective July 1. The other big item that you probably need to be aware of, and the community does, you may recall there was funds appropriated to perform repairs at the seawall down at the Libby shoreline. That work is underway finally. Unfortunately, the expense is going to be more than what was budgeted, because when they started digging into the project, they found more problems than what they had anticipated. Dave Ford stepped up to the plate on this one, worked with Belknap Landscaping to come up with a solution. And at the end of this is going to be a beautiful seawall. but we're probably seeing a budget increase between $5,000 and $13,000 when it's all said and done. The good news is this year with COVID-19, there's not a lot of traveling that is taking place. There's not a lot of conferences that are being attended. So we do have the funds to be able to absorb some of these expenses based on those conferences not being attended by our staff. So I firmly believe that we'll be able to absorb it in our normal operating budget. But that's about all I have for you at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Peniel. Next on the agenda, questions from the press. Do we have a listener out here with us this evening?
Let's see.
Okay, I guess not. Move on to public input, our second public input, limited to 3 minutes per resident, not to exceed 15. Anybody out there wanting to speak with us? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go
I
in.
saw Mary DeVries's light go on. I don't know whether she's.
Maggie Steer is also here.
I see Maggie just popped up here. Maggie, what would you like to talk with us about?
Well, I listened with great interest to the Libby discussion and found the contrast with the discussion of investing in the economic development project downtown or the town docks to be quite striking. I think it's highly unusual to have a town have to run a museum, but I do think that the process that was followed in the town hall project, with the town being asked what they wanted to have done with the town hall, is something that might be useful here with the Libby. We did surveys. I was on the Friends of the Town Hall committee. We did written surveys of the townspeople. We had listening sessions. We had brainstorming sessions. We invited people from a lot of nonprofits to come in and think about how they might use the town hall. And so I think it was a really good process for the townspeople to understand why this investment was good for the town and what exactly would happen to the building. And I kind of feel like that's the missing piece in this Libby project, that while there's been a lot of sort of save the Libby and here's how important it is, and I agree that the building needs attention, I also know from my long years in the nonprofit world that one of the cardinal rules in collections is that you don't allow a single donor to steer you off in a direction that you might not otherwise have gone. And so I think it's really important to have this process of going to the town and asking them, what do you want to see in this museum? And perhaps even a little bit of economic benefit study to see if, in fact, Wolfeboro is going to be this great museum town, or if the Libby is meeting the needs of the community and its constituency just as it is. That's all I wanted to say, just a little bit further illumination of the difficult situation that all of you as selectmen and trustees of the Libby find yourself in, because I totally sympathize. You're in a tough position. Most towns don't run museums.
Maggie Steer is awesome.
Thank you, Maggie, very much.
Okay.
We have 5.
Okay, do we have any other public input this evening?
Brad, I'd like to just weigh in on that just for a second. From the Economic Development Committee, Maggie, do not think for a minute we don't realize the museums in this town are very much part of the economic picture as well, and that, like the dock expansion, the museums are on the master plan and are on the work list as directed by the town as the master plan was put together, and is one of the top 10 things selected by the EDC as one of the most important projects that we will be continuing with as well. So in terms of being a museum town, we have 7 museums, because I consider 4 museums at the Clark House complex. But just don't forget that of the 7 museums, 5 of them are owned by the town. So that is a hard reality for the town to look at when we look at the museums being an economic driving force. So that there's a lot of public-private partnerships in the future for those museums to grow in our community. But don't think we don't know that it's there, Maggie. So
Okay,
thank you.
thank you, Kathy. Thank you.
All right, do we have any other public input this evening? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go into non-public this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second to go into non-public. Do a roll call vote. Linda,
Yes.
Dave Bowers,
Yeah.
Dave Senical,
Yes.
Paul O'Brien,
Yes.
and Brad Harriman votes yes also. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.